on, everybody? It's your girl Pam with 2200 Taps. Yo, if you haven't heard the episodes leading up to this very episode that we're about to do, you guys need to go back. We just had like Huger Houston, we had the Women from Bad Bitch Vibes podcast, and all these amazing guests, and I really, truly mean it. And my next guest, where do I even start with her? She is owning her story and kicking some serious ass. I'll tell you that right now. And I love it. She's a dear friend of mine I met in an organization a while back, and same organization that helped save my life. That's where I met her. And I am so excited to introduce to you, the name's even better, Miss Jenny Laine. Jenny Laine. Why am I calling you Jenny Laine? Jen, how you doing?
Good. How you doing, girl?
I'm good, man. Jeez. I always say it with every guest, the interviews get better and better and the stories get better and better. I can't choose like which one's my favorite. Can't do it. Won't do it. Won't even try.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to tell you, after talking to you the other day, I got some good news for you if you haven't figured it out already. Yeah, but you snapped my suspenders. Let me tell you that. And I really needed it, to be honest with you. So thank you for that. May even share that down the line on this interview. But thank you for being here today, this morning. I know we're both at home kind of lounging around in well, you're actually dressed up. I'm still in my PJs. But no, I appreciate your heart and you wanted to come on and share your story because that's what it's about. And if you don't mind, just kind of tell my listeners a little bit about yourself and we'll get to rock and rolling. Cool?
Okay, cool, girl.
All right.
Thank you so much for having me on here. I love it. Like I loved when we connected to the other day too. Like that was so good. That's always first of all, it's always so good to connect with people from previous situations, right? And experiences. And I feel like we had so much heart through that. Like we just knew how to always connect and jump right into that space. And
yeah,
it was good. That was good for me too. So a little bit about my story. I always say like I've been in the beauty industry for 24 years, started at 17, was a mom at 17, which was a huge part of that like journey. I've got 7 now babies. One of them's a bonus baby, one I adopted, and I have 5 girls. And it's just really been like a whirlwind of a journey. And in the last 5 years, I started an inner healing company where I work with life strategy, mindset, and women's empowerment. And a lot of that was just born and bred out of my own journey and my own story, and having now 6 daughters that I'm like, oh, I gotta step it up,
Yeah, all that estrogen, man.
All the things.
I love it. So you had your first baby at 17?
I got married at 17. It was really like, I guess, because of some childhood experiences that I went through and endured. I was just wanted to be an adult, wanted to escape and get out and be the one with the reins in my hands and go. So really my first one was like, oh, let's get pregnant so we can get married so I can be an adult. Because that's how 17-year-olds think,
Seriously. Wow. Oh my gosh.
And she's my baby that's actually currently living at the Olympic Training Center right now and getting ready to go to Olympic trials.
Dude, I'm telling you, like, for my listeners, this is a really cool story with this amazing lady and how her kids are thriving when, like, y'all could have literally been a statistic.
Right.
In so many ways. Because my mom had me at 16. And I get that. I can only imagine the relationship you and your oldest have because it's kind of similar to my mom and I. It's like your best friend growing up. You grow up together.
Yeah. Well, I think, it's interesting because I feel like I'm a totally different mom today than I was with my older 3. And one of my girls just turned 21 Wednesday last week. And I was telling her, gosh, when I was your age, I had a 2-year-old and then a 6-month-old, by the time I turned 21 and then kind of laughing about it. And she's like, and look at who we are. And I was like, I was so determined to not be a statistic, but I feel like with my older ones in the early years, it was kind of that militant mom, like trying so hard to be like this certain parent. And so they've really grown up with me and grown emotionally with me. And just their tenacity and who they are as people today is really a result of that journey.
I can't wait to talk about that. I feel like we're going to kind of get into that here in a minute, but I feel like this is a good segue to start your story. I know you're originally from Alaska, right?
Yeah.
Man, you're not even the lower 48. You're like way up there. wait. You
right?
got to take a ferry to get to you.
Well, I mean, or a plane. I mean, you
Or a
can drive.
plane.
We left Alaska. When we left, we drove up down the Alcan. You just have to go through Canada.
Uh, okay. That makes sense. Well, I'll tell you what, let's get started. It's so funny. We started right there with you being a, teenage mom and progressing. But
Yeah.
I know you and I have talked privately, and I think we just going back to your childhood, right? And you've even grilled my butt on this. Is like going back to that childhood.
Right.
What was it that kind of started this whole thing of, you said militaristic, mom or parental figure, mom in this case. And what was it that got you to the point where you're like, you know what? I'm going to make sure my babies have everything that they have and that I can do what I need to do to show up as a healthy me.
Yeah.
What that look like?
Well, I mean, I guess like the backstory of why I felt like that was so important was because of, I guess, out of a space that I feel as though I didn't have some of those things, and when I was 9, I went to my family, which we were kind of talking about this the other day, but like I feel like there was probably some stuff earlier than that. But when I was 9, a family friend had been staying over there at their house with our moms did business together, and the mom and dad got divorced, and I still hung out with the little girl, and she was a couple of years younger than I was, and went through just a molestation situation. And when I went to my parents to tell them what was going on, I can't remember exactly what the initial response was. I remember there was a lot of silence, and then my mom, I think, kind of went to go find out what was going on and came back to me and was kind of put it on me. Like said, oh, he had this story of what happened. And she was like, you're curious and you're at that age, kind of as if I made it up.
Oh, wow.
And it was really this like just devastating moment for me of internalizing and thinking like, what could I have ever done that you would not believe something like this that I'm telling you? And I didn't know at the time, but all of these like inner wounds and inner identity things were like coming on me like, what did I do wrong? I didn't tell this guy no, and I didn't say this at 9 years old, And then I was curious, and I can remember being curious from such a young age. And so that kind of spiraled me into this space of feeling like, oh God, not only is something wrong with me, like something like is so like, you don't even deserve to like exist. And I always felt like in that organization that we went through, when I discovered her, that part of me, it was like, I could just like leave her behind. I kicked her in the closet and shoved the door in and hope she'd suffocate and die. Like,
Man, I know what you're talking
Then
about.
I kind of progressed and went through like my dad was my hero, he was my end all be all. And I will never forget this moment. We used to go to breakfast on Saturday mornings, and we went to the store after and got out of the truck, and we came around the corner, and that man was walking towards us. And my dad and him had known each other through the relationship that existed prior, but also they were both pilots. And I remember feeling in that moment like, oh, my dad's like my superhero. Like I always thought in my mind, like he's going to kill somebody and crush them. Like that would do something terrible to me. And he didn't do that. He actually reached out and shook his hand, and a lot of just inner, like, I think I disconnected at that moment.
Did he
like
know?
yeah, he knew. Yeah. And
Wow.
there was but I think that there was such a deep root of like disbelief,
Yeah.
of like maybe not wanting to believe
It
that was
happens.
something,
Yeah, it happens.
could happen. And I've since, in like a lot of my inner healing things, like realized that that is a response I think sometimes parents have, is like, I don't know what to do with that. I can't acknowledge that could be real, or that happened on my watch, or, and so we're just going to pretend like it didn't happen or that didn't exist, and that led me into a lot of promiscuity, like moving forward. I ended up getting molested by another friend of my dad's for years and years and years. And
Man,
I was just a train wreck as a
I'm s-
teenager. Like,
I'm
you
sorry.
know,
That's
I mean,
just God dang, man.
right. Yes.
Hmm.
But I didn't tell them about the second guy because, like, why would I,
Yeah.
And then that led down a path of, I had a guy best friend when I was in high school. I thought he was my best friend. And he was a little bit older than I was, and he had left for college, came back, and he had been in like a long relationship. They had broke up, split up. And our relationship was never like this, like wanted to be together relationship. And there was like a moment, brief moment when he had come back, like I guess out of anger or whatever, and I ended up pregnant. And it was like this one and done deal. And shortly after, found out he had like about 4 or 5 other girls pregnant. Like he was kind of on his own little
Oh
rampage.
no. Oh
At,
no.
yeah, at like
Oh, man.
16 years old, like going like, oh my gosh. So I made a whole plan that I was going to go get an abortion, not really knowing or understanding what that really meant or was. Um, Ended up following through with that and really it just broke me. And that also just leads into like a huge path for me of the lack of education that sometimes we get. Like we don't know. We're trying to create a means to an end to something and you don't know what you're going to carry after that, like, and how hard that was. And that was something I lived with. And it just kind of spiraled me. That event really was sort of like this, I guess, summit experience for me of just where I was. And at that point, like realizing like I didn't feel like my parents were there for me. Like it kind of felt like I was easy prey to men in a lot of ways, betrayal in like this relationship that I had even as a friend. And so I was kind of on this like hiatus of my own of like was it martial arts? I used to compete heavily in like martial arts. That was kind of like my gig. And not long after, probably 6 months after that situation, I met my girl's dad, and he was military, second degree black belt in Taekwondo. We just kind of hit it off. I was sort of like, "You'll never be my boyfriend," kind of a thing. And I think it was like a mission to be accomplished here. And we met at 16, dated. I graduated high school early and kind of started to have that thought of like, well, if we get pregnant, we can get married and like I can grow up and move out
Yeah.
and do all those things. And I was already in beauty school doing all the jazz. And so we ended up getting pregnant with my oldest one and getting married. I got married 2 weeks after walking with my graduating class because I went back to go walk with them. And 5 months pregnant.
Gosh. Well, let me stop here. Let me ask you a question real quick. I
Yeah.
want to back up a little bit. You said you were basically on the hook by yourself to terminate the first pregnancy.
Yeah.
What like literally, and then you end up having your first baby like a
Mhm.
year or so after. I don't know the time frame. What did that literally do to your heart when you had to do that and when you felt like you had to do that? And I mean, what did that look like for you?
Well, so, I guess I really felt like the cliche, it's just a blob, it's just a this. You think, oh, let me do something about this before it is anything. Like I was definitely bought into that level of thinking. Like I had zero understanding or idea. And I can remember going into that doctor's office and he was actually like rude to me. And I didn't know why he was rude to me. I thought besides the fact that I'm here to do this thing and I'm a kid, and I felt like he just was like, oh, you're a dumb kid. And I
Mm.
remember he said that he thought I was probably about 9 weeks along, 8 or 9 weeks along. And I still didn't comprehend in my mind what that meant. And I remember going back there, and that was the most horrifying, like isolating experience. Like the nurse just held my hand and I sobbed the whole time. And they literally have like this vacuum thing
Oh God.
that they literally like vacuum this thing out of your body. And I think in the moment, you just like, you kind of know what's going on and you kind of just don't know what's going
Yeah.
on.
Gosh.
Like looking back, I feel like I had zero comprehension of the magnitude of what I was going through.
Mm.
And then I think that there was probably a lot of disassociation, really didn't let myself really feel a whole lot, just was kind of numb for a while. And then when I got pregnant with Kaylin, I can remember going in the doctor's office, one of our first doctor's appointments. I was 8 weeks along, and he did the little Doppler, the little thing where you can hear the heartbeat.
Mm.
And I heard her heartbeat the first time, and I was 8 weeks pregnant. And that's when those worlds collided for me.
Oh
And I just
wow.
lost it of like, wait, what? Like that was a baby. Like there was a baby with a heartbeat, you
Oh,
know?
that's hard. That's really hard. And I see it right now.
Yeah, that was hard. That was super hard. Um,
What's hitting you?
yeah, I think just It really, I think what hits me now in this time is like the grief and the compassion for people who also are walking that out and have no idea. And I look at, God decided to bless me now with 7 kids, and I constantly am like, man, like what in me did you entrust me to like hold these hearts? But I really felt like I made an inner vow, in that journey to honor my faith with God, in how I raised and who I raised my kids to be, like that, just what a great gift to say, like, here, I'm going to give you these precious lives and allow you to mold them and shape them. And, you know, so
And they're great
I mean,
kids.
it definitely, they are such good kids. And it definitely, though, called me to the line of wanting to honor him the best way that I could, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so then fast forward, I was married to their dad. We were together for 5 years, married for 4. Some hard stuff kind of was going on in our relationship. We had a situation with one of the girls that is her story, so I won't share much of like her story, but from a really young age went through a pretty rough situation. And through that situation, I kind of realized like, man, I've got a lot of broken in me, that kind of came up as a result of a lot of that stuff was surfacing. Like your kids are your mirror, man. Like your kids are like this mirror of like, oh, if you thought you dealt with something, if you didn't, it's going to come flooding.
Wow.
Uh, and I remember facing him one day and being like, I want to get help. I want the girls to get help. I don't want the girls to have this certain mentality that I felt like I had carried.
Hmm.
And a lot of that mentality was just like the anger and the resentment I had towards men. And he was like, no, he didn't support like us getting help together. And not long after that, I went through marital rape with him. Like he brought another one of his friends into our bedroom. And at the time I didn't know that it was marital rape either. And after that situation, it was pretty rough. It was kind of a coaxing to
Hmm.
say like, now here I did this and you had this and I want something different. And I remember spending time looking through the phone book for like escort services, like how do I appease my husband
Jeez.
in this space? And just and looking back, what I know now that I didn't know then, I just felt like that's all I was from the years of my childhood being molested and sexually assaulted and abused. And in my teenage years, it was like full grown men. And so I felt like that was who I was and what I had to offer to a man. And
Hmm.
then we went through a season where, I mean, like he would just say, it's not that hard to lay there and like throw me up against the wall. And I mean, I'd be crying, like,
He
how are
said
you?
that?
Yeah, like, how
Dude,
are
I'm gonna
you even
punch him in the
able to
throat, man.
perform? Yeah.
Oh,
So finally got out of that situation. And um, over the years, like, we divorced. I moved across the country. Like he moved somewhere else too, but he's never really been involved in the girls' lives. And some stuff has come out from my girls as to probably why he never really tried too hard to be. I think he was probably an abuser to them as well. And so,
yeah.
just realizing the ramifications of why was I choosing these type of men? Like why was I ending up in these types of situations? And then the vulnerability of my girls and recognizing like, who I got to do something. Like I got to do something in my own life and in my own heart in order to overcome this.
So, what was that breaking point for you to enter the training to
Yeah.
see what that looked
So
like?
yeah. So after Mark, I had met my now ex-husband who we were together for 10 years. He was also military. He was a young single dad. He was a young dad, had went to Korea for a year and came back, and his wife was pregnant with another guy's baby and his son was living somewhere else. So we kind of trauma bonded. Like we
Hmm.
just related to like the ridiculousness of things. And then I financially took off. I became an executive regional vice president in a network marketing company, like was making good money. And that's what caused us to move to Texas. And because we just had like this residual income, and he separated from the military. And when we got down here, that was kind of a rough transition for him. I think he had actually in ninth grade went to oh, what do they call that? like the schooling. I just forgot the name of it, like a military school, you know?
Oh, for his
Um,
MOS?
no, like in ninth grade, he dropped out and he was not in high school. He ended up being enrolled in,
It was like the military academy or something like that.
yeah, kind of like a military school. I think it was kind of for troubled kids though,
Got
you
you.
know?
Hmm.
So he did that. And then he had met my son's mom. She got pregnant young, kind of a similar story. And so he joined the Air Force in order because he knew, like, well, I can take care of a family and I could do this. And so he jumped into being in the military from a pretty young age. So when we moved down here, he just lost his bearings. And I had been doing hair since I was 17. I had this other business and very entrepreneurial mindset. And he struggled with, like, man, I wish I had a trade or something. And our relationship started to become like my success was like this mirror to where he felt like he fell short. And then he fell into addiction and just drinking and smoking pot all the time. And I'm over here like trying to be Jesus, you know? Like,
Oh my
found some
God.
girlfriends, like dove deep into my faith. Like,
Um,
and that was a whole like element of failure, you know, for him too. And so it really was when like us go that was probably even more traumatic for my kids, us going through those years. And I really felt anchored to I'm not leaving. I took up this vow. We actually split for 6 months. I moved out of the house that I had bought here, and everything had been in my name because he wasn't very squared away. And so everything was in my name. I ended up walking away from the house, tried to short sell it. It was like right after the recession
mm.
and the market was like kind of tanked. The one bank didn't want, I had an 80/20 loan. They didn't want to take the short sell deal. So they foreclosed it a few days later.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, suck, but whatever, trying to just trust. We ended up getting back together on birth control, got pregnant with my twins.
On birth control?
Birth control girl. So it was sort of like, okay, Lord, are you serious? Like what?
Not even one baby, two. Two little
Yes,
babies.
two babies. And it definitely was like a look,
Oh
what
wow.
are you doing? You know?
God's got a funny
And
sense of humor, I swear.
I know. Well, and a month before we got back together, he lost his brother to heroin overdose.
Oh wow.
So he was, you know, emotionally kind of distraught going
Yeah.
through this stuff. We hadn't really worked on our stuff. We had made some, hey, you're coming back in this situation, no more smoking pot, especially around the kids. Like, you know, you got to work some stuff out. And as soon as I was pregnant, it was like, yeah, no, I'm gonna do whatever I want to do.
Wow.
So when they were 2 weeks old, we were already talking about divorce. I went back to work at 2 weeks old. By the time they were a year old, we were divorced. What got me into the room was the years in between that, like in the PTSD that I went through. I mean, my kids would come home, like the twins in diapers, walked out of his apartment where he kind of lived in a not so great area in Arlington Grand Prairie area. And they walked out of his apartment, walked a couple blocks away from his house in diapers to a park that they like used to go, didn't know, stoned, like,
Are you
I,
serious?
yeah. My kids would come home, guess what happened? And I would just literally have this feeling of like, I'm just glad everybody's alive. You know,
Wow.
got a call from my oldest one day. They were driving to see his aunt 7 hours away. He's smoking pot in the car with all of them in the car, feeling
Jesus.
like unsafe. But he was like, I'm not changing who I am
Wow.
because of you guys. Like, dude, this is something that you do. This is not who you are. So it was just like this torture.
Yeah.
And then when the twins were 3, this was literally like the God thing that got me in the room. He had been dating a new girl and they went over to her house and she had a pool and they were all partying, drinking, smoking pot and had the girls and one of them had to go potty. So he took her in, took her floaties off so she could go potty. And here comes the other one. And listen, twins are hard to watch sober, let alone like being under some kind of influence, you
Yeah.
know? So the other one comes in. He's clearly like moving a little slower cognitively. Like the other one gets off, puts her swimming suit on, beelines it out, and he's helping the other one. Well, she jumped into the pool and nobody saw her. And it apparently didn't register to him that like she took off and she's gone. And a little girl saw her at the bottom of the pool, like, hey, what's that at the bottom of the pool? Swam down and to pick her up, little 10-year-old girl, and Eden's blue, like bluer than blue, like drowned. and they did CPR, and apparently like his girlfriend at the time like took over. They resuscitated her. She came back. He calls me and tells me to meet him at the hospital. He did not call 911 because he did not want police and ambulance to show up where they've all been smoking pot, doing drugs, and drinking. To get to the hospital, I know, like literally, girl, the
Oh,
PTSD that I feel like I had from like the years of, and this was like this opened up a CPS, our second CPS case with him, and they just look at me like it's just pot. Like, is it going to take one of my kids literally like dying
yeah.
in your care? Like, I don't care if it's freaking jelly beans. If he's not paying attention, like he's not paying attention.
Yeah. CPS is another ball of shit
Oh
show.
my God, yes, like horrible. And so thankfully she survived and she's okay. And that's a whole nother like journey and story. But within weeks of that, actually, another girl while we were in the hospital brought me a necklace with a bean on it. I'd just been entering that. And I saw on her Snapchat another girlfriend of mine that I was like, how do you guys know each other? And she also happened to be in that organization. And we're like, you got to do this. Well, I had no money. I'm a single mom, like
Yeah.
struggling. And some lady did a raffle, and I won her raffle to go into the weekend
So
to get a,
you were at your rock bottom,
yeah,
especially with what happened with your kiddo. I wouldn't even be,
yes.
I don't even, I can't imagine. I don't want to imagine. I've been the first responder to a man who was a son of a woman that died from drowning, and the mom, like that was what effed me up, was the screams
Oh,
and that. Like, I can't imagine as a parent, like I would kill my husband. I would literally, I would be like, you're done. We're bye.
oh, yeah.
I For the record, I'm not a murderer, guys. Don't take that out of context. I'm not.
Right. Yeah.
But holy
Oh, the things
wow.
like I definitely went through that too. I was just talking to another mom, a friend of mine who decided to raise her kids on her own after she went through a relationship. And sometimes that's part of it. Like those thoughts that you get of like, believe me, I had thoughts of like running him over with my car and slamming it into
Mhm.
reverse, and like horrible things would come up out of the powerlessness
Yeah.
that I felt like I had in the situation, and going through that program was huge in recognizing the levels of codependency and martyrdom that I
Yeah.
walked in, and people pleasing and no boundaries and
What were some of the key? I'm glad you said we're getting into this, right? It's like you hit your rock bottom and you chose to do different, not only for you but for your family.
yeah,
And if your significant other isn't going to get help, well, hell, you're going to do what you need to do to be a
right.
healthy version of mom and protector for these babies and yourself.
Mhm.
So what did that look like? And not so much like in the training, like I don't really care if I give the training away at this point. I really don't care, but more so like what were those moments where you're like, whoa, those moments where you're just those like aha moments, like we say, right? Was that for you that kind of turned the lights on?
Yeah. I think that some of the big ones for me were, realizing the narrative that I was operating in my life, that
Mm.
damaged goods, like just that
Oh,
I lived to it. I mean, consciously, I felt like I'm out there powerhousing, like career central, like doing all the things, like mom of the universe, like trying to do all these things. But when it came to relationships in my life, especially, it was just like that. I have no boundaries. I can be walked all over. I remember the day that we received that name, our different
yeah,
name.
yeah,
And it made me mad, but I literally felt like, well, what is damaged goods? It's like the thing you put on clearance for 70% off. Like you just have no value, like of how,
that's a great way to put it. Ugh, that just
yeah,
that stings me.
right. Like just the value I didn't carry
Wow.
for myself,
Mm.
and the lack of boundaries. And then I had guilty members,
Yeah.
and felt responsible. And that was an aha for me, is that I felt like if I could take responsibility for every MFN thing, then I could fix it.
Yeah.
And I was addicted to fixing it. I was addicted to that struggle and that strife to earn my value and to earn my worth, because if I could find weight in it, I could go to work on it. and it was exhausting. I was worn out.
So you're what I'm hearing, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm hearing like you were literally a workaholic.
Oh yeah. I mean, definitely hide behind my dad was definitely didn't fall from far from the tree. That was how my dad dealt with his life too. And most definitely.
Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. So what kind of when you were through your training, when you completed your training, what did that look like for you?
Um, I mean, I guess in what way?
More so like the woman that you were going into it versus the woman you were coming out of it when you graduated.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like when I graduated, I had a lot of understanding about like who the narrative, the tapes, the things I was buying into, the things that were leading and driving my ship, like what I aligned with versus.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's kind of the big thing. Like coming out of there, it was good because I had this sense of, oh, well, this is some crap and I can do something about it. And I don't believe in that and I can do different. And coming out of there was good. Yet there was also this aspect of, well, now I just know my bullshit narrative,
So what do
And
you
when
do
I was
now, right?
right. And I think there was a lack of integration for me. There was some integration, like it definitely was life changing. It definitely moved the needle. There was definitely a ton of value in that space. Um, I wanted to jump in and serve and contribute to that because of the things I loved about it. Like I had served in freedom ministry prior to that. Like I loved serving, loving, and helping people. That was my joy stream. And I kind of got cock blocked in that by one of the head people.
Oh no.
One of them who loved me, who's now gone,
Yeah.
and the other one who did not favor me at all. Like I feel like just got in the way of any opportunity. Like I got asked to go into the room multiple times and it was just a weird dynamic. And I finally eventually through one of the big leaders passing, a lot of things came out about the other one
Yeah.
validated for me like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm not alone in like having this feeling. And so I stepped back from that. But another woman that I met through my training had reached out to me with a program that she had went through, learned these modalities. And that for me was probably the most life-changing and upheaving, like uprooting program that I went through. And those are some of the tools now that like I take and try to turn in and teach people because of the level of integration that comes with it.
So that program actually helped you launch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, um, I think it's all going back to just get those trustworthy, and I say that very much so for this conversation, finding those trustworthy resources that are going to
Right.
help you.
Right.
And if they burn you, then you'll know. But
Yeah.
you gotta lean into it.
Mhm.
Man, that's good. Man, that's good stuff. So what when your kids? Let me go back to your kiddos, right? When you came out of those trainings and you're finding yourself and you're launching, did you find that your kids were like in parallel with you when you were launching, like they were launching? Did that or what did that look like?
Well, no,
Really?
honestly. I think that at first it was like, I think that that's normal. When you like upheaval the ground, like you till some things up, like you got to
Yeah.
uproot the whole enchilada, right? Like the roots and everything that go with it. So all the BS that I ran my show on was also played out and running in the fiber of how the kids operated.
Hmm.
And that created like a tilling process. And probably a year after I graduated, I took the kids through that program's teen portion. And that was actually super life changing for our family dynamic and the way we started to learn to communicate with one another.
Nice.
And it gave my kids space to know how to have a voice and feel confident and also have ownership in their voice,
Hmm.
and their junk, like the games they're playing and the things that they're saying and doing, like they got to own that. And that absolutely was life changing
Good.
for all of us when we all went through.
Wow. I love
But when it
that.
was just me, it was tough because then it was me trying not to be the codependent, try not to be a martyr,
Yeah.
like in trying to do different with these kids who were only used to that operation,
Yeah.
you know? So, I mean, it was all good. Like all of it was good. And that's kind of the thing I've learned no matter what the program, the process, it's all for a purpose. The challenge just is an opportunity. I always told my kids, use your adversity to your advantage. Like we're going to look at this situation as a blessing, like not a curse. Like problems are opportunities to solve problems,
Yeah.
like just this is how we grow and how we elevate.
I love that. I love that you are that upfront with your kids and you are now a safe space for them to be that upfront with you. I
Yeah.
think that's
Oh, I can
huge.
remember a couple years ago and doing the work that I do now that I teach. It's a continuous, it's like a muscle, years ago I competed in bodybuilding and I always loved working out. I started working out when I was 11 years old, but when it came to this point of like, oh, I'm going to get on a stage, had prepared for a long period of time and then got to a point where it was like, okay, for 12 weeks, we're going to go super hardcore and like eat a certain way and pose a certain way and work out a certain way and just train and live a certain way
Hmm.
that it equated to a get on stage moment. And that was great, but you don't get to keep that forever
Yeah.
unless you work at it, like, and just like everything that we do, like our inner healing work, like if we go through it and we lay it down, it has memory, we can pick it up, but we have to actively like utilize it. And that was absolutely like a huge part of the aha of this journey.
Oh my God. I love it. Well, we've been kind of tiptoeing around your business and what you're doing now.
Mhm.
I'd like to talk a little. I'm on a weird timer right now on the call. We may have to log off and on real quick. I don't know if it's going to
Yeah.
cut it off, just so you know. We got like
Okay.
17 minutes.
Yeah.
We got plenty of time. But yeah, I want to talk about what you're doing because I was following a mutual friend and then I started seeing you kind of promoting your business and watching you. And now you are in the driver's seat of helping people do exactly what people did for us to find our
Right.
inner healing and all that good stuff. So, what made you want to start it? And how is this going? What is that looking like? All that good
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. So I think a huge part of what made me, I've always loved growth and contribution are like my big jam, like those are some things that I've always just felt like almost an addiction to like, oh, I want to grow and to learn and to expand and to heal. And the different programs and modalities I've gone through in the past were so helpful in just my own personal elevation. I got into personal growth and development in the first business that I was in. And so learned the value of growing in that space and then just walking
Mm.
through what I walked through in my own journey and realizing like the struggle bus sometimes of that process and wanting to figure out ways like, how do we streamline this? Like, how do we make this something that's a little more efficient for people? We live in a microwave society. Everybody wants that quick fix. I mean,
Ooh,
it's
that's a good way to
billions
put
of
it.
dollars in industry, right? Like
That's
we
a
all want
good way to put it.
2 minutes or
Oh,
less.
yeah. Immediate gratification. Yeah.
And I'm a process girl. Like traditional therapy was always tough for me because it's kind of like, oh, let's open a can of worms and get all emotionally dysregulated and then we'll see you the next time. Like,
Yeah.
oh, sucked. And so that
uh,
program that we went through was great because it was so like a lot of things in a short amount of time. And so then these tools that I learned were also like a little bit of pulling a lot of those pieces together into micro processes that really create tremendous shift and move that needle
mhm,
tremendously. And so much of it is really about a realignment process.
mhm.
Like we are programmed environmentally, societally, religiously, through our parents, through our experiences and our traumas of our life. And like we delete, distort, and generalize all of that and call it the truth. And that's who we walk in. That's why I walked in damaged goods, because all of those experiences and those situations that validated that narrative to me caused me to walk in that identity instead of the identity that I was God given. And so
Yeah.
taking people through that process of realigning and healing. And for me, I feel like it's not just a mental or emotional thing. It's also a spiritual and a physical thing. A lot of therapy is top down. That's 20% of the game. Like, the somatic aspect is in our body.
Yeah.
And spiritually, we're spirit having a human experience. And so all of these things have to intercede and interconnect. And otherwise, it's just knowledge. It's just a bunch of
Mm,
talk, like
yeah.
how do we integrate these things? And, I've come a super long way and I've got a lot of awesome tools, but I would say like I'm still on that journey. And I think I'll forever be on that journey of evolving and coming into like my fullest potential and like who I am and what's next. And every season presents something different. And when my older kids hit those ages of getting ready to go off to college, they got a mom. My older three got this mom who was in survival mode,
Yeah.
you who was trying to overcome these childhood things, who was living out the repercussions and the consequences of those beliefs and trying to parent them and be something different and shield them and raise them as well as I could under all those circumstances. And that caused straight up survival. And I remember my oldest daughter looking at me and going, Mom, like, go have fun.
Hmm.
Like, go enjoy yourself. And my sister had come to visit and we were laughing one day. And my oldest daughter looked at me, she goes, I've never heard you laugh like that.
Oh,
And that killed me. And then when my kids were leaving, nobody prepares you for this season.
the empty
Like you
nesters.
like heading to this finish line of 18 and getting them through and like, whoo, we made it. But like I had these realizations as a mom of like how much my identity was wrapped up into being their mom,
Mm.
and like how they don't really care if I'm sad and I'm hurting and like what my devastation looks like as I have to let them go become people. And you're going like, did I cross every T? Did I dot every I in this situation? Like, did I give them emotionally and physically like what they need to go out there and be healthy, whole individuals? And there's such a grief process in that process. And like you looked at me and go, what's your favorite color and what do you like to do for fun? And I was like, I don't know. And
Oh,
and I think it's that realignment. And so like the
yeah.
work I do really falls into that space of realizing what are the identities in the compartments
Hmm.
that I live my life, because I'm not just a hairdresser, I'm not just a mom, I'm not just
Yeah.
a coach, you know what I mean? Like I'm a Jen, I have my own dreams, wants, needs, and desires. And how do I really like allow that to be the fullest expression that everybody around me gets to see, especially my kids and my family? And how do I undo all of the layers of all of the crap, the people pleasing, the codependency,
Yeah.
the trauma, in order to be the full expression of myself? And that's fun. That's a fun journey. It's been exciting, and to help other people come alongside and realize like what's getting in your way of that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're good at that. You're really good at that. You called me on my shit the other day and I loved it. Um, yeah, you're really good at that. You're definitely in your element, I'll tell you that. Um, yeah. And your kids, and getting back to your kiddos here, like your oldest is freaking a beast, dude. And I wanted to actually go to one of her events here in Fort Worth, but I never followed through. But now
Yeah.
she's in the Olympics, or training for the Olympics.
Yeah, she lives at the Olympic Training Center. She took it was supposed to be her last year of college, and she decided to take a gap year, which that's actually been kind of hard on her, which is interesting. Like,
Yeah.
you know, she's got her own mental game with that, like of like, oh, everybody's graduating and I'm not. And I'm like, I don't know too many people who are training for the Olympics, baby. So she's got the
Oh,
Olympics. She qualified in December for the Olympic trials
that's
because the
amazing.
journey was you have to qualify
Yeah.
to go to the trials. And so she got her spot for that, and the trials are in April. The good thing is that she really has like this heart of like, it's okay if it doesn't happen. Like I've got a good two more Olympics that I'll be able to do like with her age,
Hmm.
And so, but it's kind of crazy. I think she's got a pretty good opportunity. She just took gold in France a couple weeks ago
Beast
at
mode, man. This
international
kid.
tournament. And
This
she
kid is
is.
a beast.
And she didn't even start till her sophomore year of high school. And that's one of the most fun parts for a lot of her coaches and stuff are like, dude, she hadn't even hit her full capacity or
God dang.
Um, so
Oh
that
my
is
God.
really exciting. It's been super exciting.
Oh man. And then your other kiddos, your son graduated from college. Your
He
babies are
can.
growing up.
They are. I know. I know. And then we got Joe's daughter this summer to come live with us full time. And that's been amazing. Like she's doing so much better. And she definitely, like, that's been the hard part is that you watch your kids go through their own levels of trauma,
Yeah. Oh,
you
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and realizing like how easy it is to step into our ego as people and as parents and parent from our ego or learn to parent from compassion and like a safe place and like what do I really ultimately want to give this kiddo that she can launch from and
That's
it's sure as come out of my ego,
that's good. That's good medicine. You can parent from your ego or you can parent from compassion.
Right.
Holy moly. I don't even have kids right now and that just hit me. But
Yeah.
it's true because you have these parents that, they're living vicariously through their kids and like, you're not good enough in sports. You're going to keep playing, playing, playing. And it's like, bro, I don't even want to play the sport, but
Yeah.
I'm doing it because of you. It's your ego. Like, stop feeding that.
Girl, yes. Well,
Whoa.
it's funny because years ago when my bigs were little, like I was in the personal training space and the fitness space, and I would have these people bring their kids in and, they're in select this, rec that, specialized training of this kind, personalized training over here, personal training over here, like all in hopes that they become something one day. And we watched so many kids be burnt out by the time that they
Mm-hmm.
actually had the opportunity. And my oldest daughter popped out looking like an athlete, wanted zero to do with athletics. Like I had to make her, like when she went to seventh grade, I was like, you're going to play basketball. It's fun. And now she's living at the freaking Olympic Training Center. That like
Oh.
that ego. I mean, we see that so much in the
Yeah.
wrestling community, like a lot of these parents and the things that they say. And with the girls, I always said, like, the one thing you will never hear me say is like anything about your weight,
Mm-hmm.
like,
Yeah.
I remember when she first started, she was kind of mirroring some people around her. And one time she kind of had a little bit of a crappy attitude. And I looked at her and I said, if you can't lose, you don't deserve to win. Like you better learn how to lose, like in
Wow.
this whole gamut. But it's not even the kids, it's the parents
I know.
at the time.
I
And
know.
watching my kiddo, dude, she's hard enough on herself. She sure as crap did not need somebody else to be hard on her. Like those
No.
natural consequences were there.
How are they doing with you now? How do they respond with you? How are they doing with your new fiance and what is that looking like?
Yeah. They're doing good. I feel like the kids all along with Joe, it's so funny because he's just not he I always said he's the calm to my storm. Like he's just kind of more skill bug.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he does get mad about stuff sometimes, but it takes a little bit and a little while for him to get to that point. But I think the kids were very leery. Like I have been mom and dad. And that's something that I teach on too is the whole masculine, feminine. Like operated in my masculine for so long that they're used to me like calling the shots and they didn't like the idea of like another person.
Mm-hmm. I was like that.
But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Aaliyah and Taylor, my son and my middle oldest daughter, always they bonded really well with him. Kaylin is taking a little slower. She's my leery one, man. She's got a lot of hurt that she's had from the dad situation in arena and then just the boy situation in arena, I feel like. And
Yeah.
she's on her little journey. I feel like he's going to be one of these look back situations where they realize like he was at most of her events, and like supporting her all the way through. And so they're good. And as far as with me, it's gone really good. Like my son, they go through these phases, and I remember going through a phase when he was like that young adult, just kind of launching out post high school, going into college. And it was hard to bond with him. It felt like a little bit of like passivity. And it would drive me crazy where I felt like I was the one being passive aggressive because I'm like, there's an elephant in the room, what's going on. And he's so in his own skin now that like we have the greatest conversations. Aaliyah and I are like best friends. Kaylin's just been on her journey of her own inner healing and then like continuing to hone in and be a safe place for her.
Hmm.
And then Chloe, like we got her and she has often came back. And it's funny, her and I, she's my bonus baby. When she was probably 14, like I had a whole little breakdown with her where I was like, whoa, 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 like, listen to me. And just kind of verbally gave her a 1-2. And she videoed that and she hated that. And now she comes back to me. She's like, you are the only person who's ever parented me.
Wow.
Really, truly, like, and then give me that safe place. And she expresses that. So that's awesome for me in my heart to feel like that they do feel like I can be a safe place for them. And I'm still going to be their mama, like, and throw down when I need to, but
Yeah.
it's love, the message is out of caring for them.
No, it's interesting, kind of like to backtrack real quick before we wrap up. We're doing really good on time. Your current fiance
Yeah.
actually went through the same training that you went through, that we
Yeah.
went through.
Yeah.
And without really diving into his stuff, because that's his stuff, right? But what did that look like as far as him coming out of it and y'all being able to speak the same language, so to speak?
Oh, yeah.
What was that like?
Uh, I mean, so good. Like when I went in the month before he did, and I kind of honestly gave him an ultimatum. Like, if you don't do this, like, this is probably not going to work. And
Yeah.
we've been together for almost 9 years, and we just got engaged last year. And it's me. Me. Like, I'm like, oh, like we all have our stuff, right?
Yeah.
He has his level of stuff too, and his willingness to work on that and through that. But our ability to, because he's done the work and that he continues to step in and do the work, like, we both individually take responsibility for ourselves and our junk, and we can have those conversations, I think are the only reason our relationship is as successful as it is.
I can appreciate that so much. You hear about it all the time about couples. Like the biggest thing that ends relationship is no communication.
Yeah.
Like it could be the lack of this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, if you're not communicating, you're not thriving.
Yeah. Well, and I think you like personal ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've watched a lot of people. I can remember actually in the training too, like realizing that there are people who come in this and weaponize what they learn.
Oh yeah, and that's pretty bad. Yeah.
And I think when you already are hiding and maybe don't even realize that you're hiding, maybe you're avoidant, like it's easy to attain knowledge and understanding about something without application in a way that allows you to stay behind the wall. And I can relate to that in fibers of my own story, and in like witnessing and us having to call each other out in those spaces and being able to take ownership of our position to be able to have that conversation is the only thing that changed the game.
Yeah. I love that. There's hope. There is hope. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Maybe I'll start getting out in the dating scene. I don't know. We'll see.
All
but
things.
I got to tell you real quick before we wrap up. I told you I wanted, you were talking about pivoting, right? And having those pivot moments in life. And those are the moments that alter your trajectory. You can choose to pivot or you can choose to stay stuck in your own shit.
Yeah.
And I told you I was going to get a Friends poster with the couch.
Yeah.
And instead of doing that, I actually invited some friends over. One that loves to paint. He's a Marine buddy of mine. That's his outlet.
Yeah.
So I was at Walmart. I ended up getting canvases, like 5 canvases. And we had a painting party. And we spelled pivot and hung it up on my wall. So I could see it every day. And the best part is it's crooked. Like it's not even like we tried to hang it straight, but it's like, meh. I'm like, that works, dude. That so works. It was really fun and good medicine to have them over to do it, and it was just good. So I was kind of proud of myself, and I needed to follow up with you on that it happened.
I love it.
Now there's a story behind these paintings or this painting.
Yes.
So thank you for that good medicine.
Of course.
See it every morning.
I love that.
Well, real quick, I think we did really good on time. Thanks for hanging in there with me and giving me your time, which is the most precious thing anybody could ask for. But before I let you go, where can people find you? Maybe even sign up for these trainings. Just reach out like, hey, where are you at? Or how can I get involved with you? Where can they find you?
Yeah. So right now, JennyLaineCo.com is our landing page and our website, where we have quite a bit of information. We've got a free download on there that people can go on and download a free meditation on clearing overwhelm, because we all need a little of that stress release.
Mm-hmm.
Give a little bit of information about some ways to work with us. Also, Facebook, JennyLaineCo, and we have a private Facebook page called Bring Your Belonging. And that's where I'll go in and do some teaching. There's already several hours of teaching up in there, just talking about why we do what we do, why this healing and reprogramming your RAS is important, and how that is a launching pad for everything that we do in life. So you can find me there and connect with me there. And I look forward to connecting with some of the hearts of your people, girl.
Man, these hearts are very special. Let me tell you that. And I think it's going to be good. And I'll link everything in the show notes down below, or wherever these videos land. We'll make sure we do that. And just see what happens. So
yeah.
I appreciate you so much.
Appreciate you too.
Much. Well, hang with me one tight. I'm going to sign off with my listeners, and then we'll chat and say goodbye here in a minute.
Okay.
But there you go, guys. Miss Jenny Laine. What a name. She's doing big things in the community and for the people. And if you guys want to get connected, everything's down below, guys. And get ready, because we got more guests coming up. And we can't thank all of our guests that have been here thus far, and especially Jen today, for sharing their hearts and giving people hope. That's what it's about. So until next time, peace.